What's up, everybody? I don't see there's a whole lot of people here yet, so we'll just sort of hang out a little bit till maybe some more people roll in. But for those of you who are here, welcome. Figured today would be just a bit of a dialogue, nothing too special, just sort of a little bit of a surprise stream I felt like doing. Did a little bit of soul searching this week, thinking about stuff, but welcome. Let's see who's here, if anybody is public. Let's see. Ooh, it doesn't show anybody. It says 4 people watching, 7 people watching. Some people are entering, so we'll give it a little bit of time for people to show up. But welcome to those of you who are here. Welcome. Oh, there we go. Hecka, what's up, Hecka? Do you know the story of Dark Plagueis? I feel like I'm wearing a costume almost. What's up, Eddie? What's up, brother? Good. People are starting to filter in. So once we get going here, we'll start chit-chatting. Today's sort of an everything day. Powie-foo. What's up, Powie-foo? Powie-foo? I like that, Powie-foo. You're very Powie-foo, Powie-foo. What's going on? So we'll let some more people filter in. If you want this chat to get going, if you want me to start talking, make sure you share this in your favorite social media. See if we can get the numbers up. We're at rookie numbers right now. See if we can get this at least up to the 15s or 20s, for crying out loud. What's going on? So what would you guys like to talk about today? I have some things I'd like to talk about. I got this off of Etsy. I keep forgetting to put the link to like recommend it. Somebody asked where I got this from. This is actually a really good robe. This is actually my favorite one. It's actually made out of pure linen. I don't know if they put anything else like the threading. They might have used something else for the thread, but it's advertised as pure linen. I like linen because linen, it's got a more like authentic feel to it than, well, definitely more than most costume robes. Like most costume robes are made out of, you know, like, oh, I don't know, plastic, you know, polyester and shit. And I have some polyester robes and they are absolutely obnoxious. I don't like the polyester robes at all. I really don't like them. So these linen robes feel good. They're almost as good as, or I should say, as good or better than cotton, to be honest with you. So yeah, let's keep going with this linen stuff. So let's see. The Psycho Shinobi, what's up, brother? What's up to you too? Welcome, welcome. So let's share this around the world. Let's get some more people. It's all without warning. Sometimes I like to just do a stream without telling people. Like I don't necessarily like telling people that I'm going to do a stream, and just sort of make it a surprise. This way I can sort of judge and see like how alert is everybody. Are people like just sitting by their phones and hanging out? How many people just want to watch a live stream, you know? Yeah. Sometimes I notice that like when I really advertise things ahead of time, I get more viewers, and sometimes it's just a matter of the time of day. So I find that interesting. Someone asked me on Facebook, Thorne, when did you start wearing makeup? I've never worn, I shouldn't say never. I think I've worn makeup like twice in my life. I'm gonna respond to them. What should I say? I don't wear makeup, bro. Not that I wouldn't. It's just, like, I don't need to. I look weird enough without it. So, there we go. I responded. Hopefully they understand. So some of this conversation, I think I'm going to talk, you know, we're going to split the difference. We're going to talk a little bit about, a bunch of different things. And we're going to try to keep it spiritual and psychological more than anything. And there's some reasons for that, which I'll cover once I get to that. But let me get to the right screen here. Here we go. 9 people watching. We got up to 11 for a second. Let's bump these rookie numbers up. Double digits, guys. Double digits. All right. So, yeah, Psycho Shinobi. Polyester it's wearable, but it gets too hot, and it does feel like wearing a plastic bag. I have a, like I'll wear polyester in the dead of winter. I'll turn the temperature down so it's like more comfortable. Polyester is good when it's cold, but it's not really good like when you need to breathe. And I like breathable clothing. I always have. You know, if I had my druthers, if I could wear whatever I want, it would always be some form of, you know, linen, silk, cotton, stuff that breathes. And it would always be some kind of like I don't like tight clothing, even if I get like into good shape. I don't like tight clothing. I like loose fitting robe like clothing. I always have. People think it's a little bit weird. Like I wear t-shirts and like cargo pants most of the time, like a pretty goth kind of look, I guess, like a kind of basic, basic goth look. But like this, I like this. Like I walk around the house, I'll wear this sometimes. I'll just walk around like I just feel cool. Like I feel better wearing a robe. It just feels cool. So maybe it's a little cornball, but I like it. Hey, Scott is Witch. I know who that is. What's up, sister? Good to see you. It's been a minute. L the Alchemist, what's up, brother? Good to see you too. Jockster. Yes, we got a weekend stream in the house. This is sort of the point. I figured most of the time it's Thursday night, and I figured there's a lot of people who say, hey, I never get to see you during the day. So let's do some daytime streaming. So I figured I'll do a little bit of that, especially now that Fleshy's not going to be as involved for a while. He's taking a very long break, he says. He wants to take a very long break from everything. And you guys may have noticed he's not even that active on places where you might know him on the side. He's doing a lot of school stuff, and he's focusing on his life, and that's necessary. And, look, internet stuff, no matter what position you're in, no matter how positive you are, no matter how much you try to make things positive, negative things happen. And the internet is a very toxic place. And some people are absolutely caught up in the toxic nature of the internet. And that's some of what we're going to talk about today. Not too much, because I don't want to drag you guys down today. But, the universe has an interesting way of telling us, when we need to hear things. And if we don't learn to listen, it can be really dangerous, would be the word I would use. The universe talks to us. It talks to us in synchronicities and in things that you'll hear out of the corner of your ear, so to speak. Like people say, I saw it out of the corner of my eye. I say it like you hear it out of the corner of your ear, so to speak. You'll be sitting there and just maybe you'll be scrolling and someone will have a meme, or you'll be talking to someone and out of the corner of your ear, you hear somebody in the distance say something you needed to hear. And that's been happening to me a lot the last couple of days. And it started, interestingly enough, I was watching a political stream because I have been way too fixated on that stuff lately. This comes and goes. We're sort of in a crisis right now around the world. Everyone's kind of feeling it. Everybody knows what we're talking about. No matter which side of the fence you're on, most people are very unhappy and uncomfortable if they're paying attention. So you really got to pay attention, which is what I was doing, but I was paying attention to things to the point where you get attachments, and those attachments can make you very uncomfortable. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Hey, Shadow Doc and Nina the Blue Wrench, what's up, sweetheart? I missed you. We got to get you back on. We should do another stream sometime, just me and you. So So Eddie's saying shit's shifting in the astral right now. It seems like a lot of people are feeling it. I know I am. Yeah, it's coming and going. I mean, it's always positive and negative all the time. There is a flow, and it's going to keep going. But so the messages I got, interestingly enough, the main message I got was while watching a live stream of this guy, and he pointed out something that I knew, but I sort of, like anybody, I forget things that I know, things that I know and I realize. And they pointed out that, well, let's just put it like this. Every day, this is why I started the stream looking out my window. Every day, for the most part, we're generally 95% of the time, our day is reasonably pleasant. That is to say, 95% of our day is just, everything. It's just you go to work, you do your things. It's mostly happy. It's neither here nor there. And about 5% of your day is actually really, really, really triggering, upsetting, unsettling. Basically, only about 5% of your average day gives you outrage. Maybe you're at your job and your boss gives you an attitude, or maybe a customer does, or maybe someone you love said something that you didn't like, or whatever, I'm talking about real life. But the internet, it's basically the inverse, it seems. It seems like, most of the internet is about outrage. And there's this concept called outrage porn. And I don't mean porn where people are outrage fucking, guys. I'm talking about just outrage porn. And it's being used by everybody. It's one of the reasons why I don't like to talk about drama in the community very much, because I feel like it's outrage porn. People tune into that just for the outrage part. And even though it doesn't affect them necessarily, it could be outrage about, you know, two different people fighting in the community that there's really no reason for everyone to be talking about. It's really nobody's business necessarily. And people are just bitching about it, you know. People take these online relationships too seriously, and they get on each other's cases, and they fight and they bicker and they argue about the dumbest fucking things. When, you know, these people, you're probably never going to meet them, and they don't really have any real effect on you other than that they're talking shit. That's just the community level drama. So 95% of big tech, or anything really, I shouldn't say big tech because it's everywhere, of online activity, online interrelationships, all that stuff, revolves around outrage porn. And the algorithms of big tech definitely encourage this. You get way more views and way more responses and way more engagement when you talk about outrageous stuff, unless it's stuff they don't want you outraged about. Of course, if I post something on Facebook, for example, let's say I pretend that I'm having a fight with somebody. Maybe, I don't know, maybe pretend I'm having a fight with Eddie or EA or anybody. If I pretend I was having a fight with them, my numbers for that post would go through the roof. I know this for a fact, because on the 1 or 2 times I've mentioned things that I've had to talk about, where like maybe I had a problem with other people I've worked with in the past or whatever, those posts get huge engagement. Like it's like tons of comments, lots of well wishes, people just all over it. And, you know, that's a big deal. But when I say, oh, Facebook is censoring you, like that might get like 3 people, right? So I know that sometimes people just scroll through shit that they don't want to see. Maybe people are sick of certain kinds of outrage. But the internet promotes outrage whenever it can, and it will depromote, it will demote outrage that would get them in trouble, we'll say. So you're way less likely. All the smoke's going towards my computer. I'm gonna kill this computer. I gotta, like, I don't know, I gotta stop doing incense out here because the fans on this thing are way stronger, so it's like getting sucked right into my computer. Nothing kills a computer faster than smoke and water. Like you throw this into like a tub of water or next to a fire, it'll be dead in very similar amount of time. Anyway, so they definitely want you outraged. And we see this especially on the rapid fire 140 character, 240 character Twitter type stuff, where you can only say a little bit at a time, and it's really built on outrage. Like Twitter's built on outrage. It's 100% nothing but outrage. If you turn on that thing, unless you're really, really careful to only select people who have nothing but positive stuff to say, you're going to be bombarded with outrage culture all day long. And it's going to be such and so said this microaggression, such and so is a racist bigot, such and so is taking your rights away. And the issue is we get very deeply attached to these problems. And I did a video not long ago, something about like, don't pay attention, like don't feed them your energy. And not to sound like a hypocrite, but even I do it. Like it's very infectious. It's very infectious. It's very difficult to not look. Especially when things get real, especially when all the things that I was warning people about for like over a decade now are starting to happen more and more with censorship, and you have, you know, social credit and all of this stuff in its infancy starting to emerge. You have a lot of things happening, and not all of it's bad, by the way. That's the thing that really kind of gets people, is you got people who are doomers and they look at the world and they go, oh, woe is me, my side of whatever politics is losing, or we're losing this and we're losing. You know, a lot of what you're seeing right now is the thrashing of a dying society. And when I say dying society, I don't mean we're all going to go into Mad Max. I mean a dying paradigm of society. And that paradigm may seem like it's the end of the world when it ends, especially if you're into it, but actually it's not. Like no matter which happens, it's even if it is the end of all things, even that's not the end. It's sort of one of those things where we get so attached to things the way they are, and egoism takes over, and it can happen to anybody. And I talk about this because, you know, one of the things I promised myself and my spirits was always being sincere about what I'm experiencing. I never wanted to be fake. as a YouTuber. I never wanted to be fake as a blogger. I never wanted to say things that weren't true. You know, it's one thing to like dress things up, you know, like to put a robe on and, you know, I don't sit around my house like this all the time, although I do sit around my house like this quite often. It's not how I am 24/7. I put this on for streams. I do it for rituals or when I'm meditating, or sometimes if I just want to feel like a magician walking around and I want to feel mystical, I'll put it on. But I'm being sincere with you guys. I dress things up only to make them entertaining, but the essence is always honesty. And I don't like being dishonest and pretending that things don't bother me, or pretending that things do bother me when they don't. I don't like that. And so I've sort of been very honest with you guys lately about the things that are bothering me. And just lately, it's been really difficult. Like, people might be wondering, how come Thorne's not putting out as much content? Where's, you know, it's been 2 years since he released a book and all of this stuff. And there's a very good reason for that. Not all of it's meant to public, but there's very good reasons for that. And some of it is, you know, I've got to be honest with you, as much as I talk about non-duality and all these kind of enlightenment ontologies, that doesn't mean that just because I have experienced those things, just because I've had moments of clarity and moments of completeness and realization, doesn't mean that I live that way 24 hours a day. Someone who does is very rare, right? I'm not saying they never happen. It's just the majority of people, even those who are gurus, don't live that way. And gurus, of course, is like a dirty word for some people, and understandably so. But even people who are like teachers and gurus and even bodhisattvas and such, they don't live their lives 24/7 necessarily in a perfect state of peace and bliss. That's very, very rare. Only a handful of people really do. And most of the time when they do, they don't advertise it. They don't teach. They just kind of live their lives in a peaceful way, and they go on, and that's that. So if I'm here doing these videos, obviously that doesn't mean I don't have it figured out, so to speak. Like, I don't want to say that, oh, you should only listen to people who do. The point is that I've got to show you guys the good and the bad. I've got to show you when I'm suffering, when I'm having egoistic moments. And I define ego not as necessarily being arrogant or something. That to me is like a hollow insult when someone says you're so arrogant. Like, well, why do you care? Are you so selfless that my arrogance bothers you? You know, really? Come on. What it is egoism is when you fail to live in the moment, in the present, to be fully aware, and to collapse the dualistic illusion into its non-dual footprint, which is where I prefer to be. And sometimes I can only maintain that for a short time. Sometimes I can only do that for an hour or two here and there. Sometimes I can do it for days at a time. And I recognize the divine in everything, and I feel connected to everything. And all of these disparate, seemingly separate things I see as one true, seamless thing. You know, when I'm not caught up in my egoistic thinking habit, I don't split things into separate components and then deal with them as separate things. When I am in my better state, we'll say, and it's not even a better state, it's not even a state, when I have cleared away the delusion, I don't have necessarily these experiences of being lost in these things, even when they're really bad. I remember when the coup first began, and I did a video about telling you guys to just relax. This is like a crucible. This is going to happen. It is like a standing stone in the middle of the river of time. We can't just avoid it. We're gonna hit it and go around it, and there's no way out of that. And I was totally at peace with it. I was totally like, I know what's coming. I know what's going to happen. I know what this is meant to be. This is part of the Great Awakening. It's necessary for all of this horror to happen. All of the worst things that are happening are necessary. And it may not even be that it's going to be necessary so that we stop it. It may be necessary so that we can learn to let go. There is that possibility. But I'm okay with that. Like, I realize that that's part of it. Like, there are times when I think to myself, if I'm sitting here looking out this window and a mushroom cloud just went poof right now, I'd be like, ain't that some shit? Oh, well. And I'd probably just be at peace with it. And other times I'd freak the fuck out, you know? But the point of being at peace isn't to be a doormat. It's not to just roll over when bad things happen. You know, this is a misunderstanding of stoicism and acceptance. Acceptance and stoicism is You know, one of the first rules of Stoicism, especially like Musashi's 21 rules or whatever they called it. The first one is to accept things as they are. And people misunderstand that to mean that you're supposed to just roll over and look at the world like, you know, who cares? None of this matters, and some kind of nihilistic acceptance and just let the world kick a hole in you. That's not what it means. You have to accept things as they are in order to live in the moment. That doesn't mean that you stop fighting. It doesn't mean that you let people have their way. It doesn't mean that you know, when we say accept things as they are, it means don't be scared of it. Don't be mad at it. Don't think of it like, it means you've got to live in the now fully without fear. And when I'm not doing that is when I get the most distressed and the most anxiety and the most depression. And which one causes which, I couldn't tell you. There's really no cause and effect there. It just happens. Like they mutually arise, as a Buddhist would say. The anxiety and the depression mutually arise along with the egoism. And the egoism mutually arises with the anxiety and depression. And I will say that, you know, I've had experiences of anxiety and depression from a non-dual space. That is to say, in a non-dual way, I've experienced it sort of like, okay, whatever. You know, it is what it is. I'm depressed today. No big deal. I'm just going to relax. I'm not going to stress out about being, you know, depressed. Or I have anxiety today. Okay, well, then that's what it is. Your mind's going to be chattering. Just let the chattering happen. Treat it like a babbling brook, and try not to engage with those thoughts in a way that causes suffering. And that's actually how I'm not going to say that's how I maintain, but that is a way, that is how a non-dualist sort of, and when I say non-dualist, this refers to many different enlightenment ontologies. It could be a Buddhist, a Vedic, you know, Hindu, whatever. When you reach a certain point, that's sort of how it is. Like, it doesn't get easier. You don't have more comfort. You don't stop having anxiety and depression or pain or anything. And it's not that you just roll over and let things be the way they are. It is you let things be the way they are and you realize you're doing all of them and that this too shall pass. You will be fine. And even if you're not, even that is part of it. Even that, you know, the hardest thing is, and I do it reflexively a lot of times, and so do many of you, I'm sure. When we say something like this too shall pass, it is with the intention of getting back to the good part. But the reality is the good part will pass too. It's all going to pass. It's all going to pass into memory. It's all going to pass away. And that's the point. All of this is impermanent because it's unreal. All of this is unreal. The only thing that's real is the consciousness which is experiencing it in the now. It's the only thing that's real. That is the now that is real. This is not the now. This thing is not. Yes, it is in the now. But that wasn't now. That's actually, by the time I heard that, that's in the past. The now is consciousness, and it's an eternal now. Consciousness is always now. And the experiences flow through consciousness, but consciousness is unmoving. You know, it doesn't cause things, and it doesn't wrap around things, and it is always there, right? So going back to what I started saying, you know, big tech, the media, everything, it's based right now on outrage porn, fear porn, you know, hyperbole porn, things that they want to get a rise out of you over all the time. They want you upset. They want your eyeballs glued to the screen in fear so that you're more easy to manipulate. That's a fact. Anyone who knows about abuse knows that fear is one of the greatest ways to manipulate people. You make them scared, you make them have dread, and you can get them to do just about anything by manipulating when they feel that fear and when they don't. Because your intellectual mind might not see a relationship between why you're scared right now and what's happening. Like you could, so for example, it's sort of like a Pavlovian instinct. If you do something, it could be something nice. It could be, you know, eating a chocolate chip cookie. If you are hit with a negative emotion while you're having that good experience, if it's strong enough, you'll come to associate that negative with the positive thing, right? Because your inner reptile brain doesn't know the difference. It just knows I do X and I experience Y. It doesn't necessarily realize that there's no causal relationship between the two. It thinks there is. That's part of the flaw of human thinking. So you can be made to feel unhappy even in the middle of pleasurable moments of your life, because you're trained to feel fear, anxiety, and remorse and pain, even when there's no reason to. And I could, if I was really trying, I could do this to somebody and get them convinced of all the wrong things, right? I don't have the patience to do that, but I know the technique. It's not hard. You just give negative reinforcement to positive moments. And you can shape a civilization that way very easily. So I'm looking out at this beautiful day right now. Actually, it's not really that beautiful. It's kind of gray, but to me, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful rainy day. I like it. It looks pretty nice. There's a little bit of a golden light filtering through because it's spring. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, if I was watching the news right now, or if I was watching social media right now, what kind of thing would be pissing me off right now? If I was really looking right now, if I looked on Twitter right now, if I looked on anything, all I would see is doom and gloom. Now, does that mean I shouldn't look? Does that mean that I should... See, that's the other side. I get people coming to me saying, well, Thorne, I am just so at peace because I don't look at this crap. I ignore the world because it's sick and it's gross. Well, now you're showing me that you have an aversion issue. Like you're actually the other side of that shadow. So shadow side 1 is to be upset by everything. Shadow side 2 is to say, I'm not upset by it because I just don't look at it. So let me give you an analogy. Let's say you're a person who has been strapped down to a fire ant hill and you got one hand free. So there's 3 responses to the fire ant situation. The first one is to freak the fuck out and try to wipe all the ants off you. Oh my God, I got all these ants on me. They're eating me. They're ripping me up. And you got one hand free. So you're trying to wipe all the ants off. That's the anxiety, anger, doom and gloom side. Then you have the apathy side, which is, well, fuck it. There's nothing I can do about it. So you just kind of cover your face and just kind of like accept it and maybe try to kill yourself with your hand or something. And you just kind of like ignore, you do your best to ignore the fact that the fire ants are eating you alive and they're burning and stinging you. And then there's the rational side, which is I am getting attacked by fire ants. I accept this situation. It is happening. I can't avoid this. It's going on. So what do? Well, I got a free hand. Let me untie my other hand and get up. Right? So there's 3 kinds of responses. Maybe that's not the best analogy, but there's 3 kinds of responses. And people who say, well, I don't look at the world because it's such garbage. I just want to be happy. You're not actually dealing with that shadow, though. You're not actually living in the moment. You're not prepared for the worst. You're not ready for when things happen. If the world decides to beat a path to your door to subjugate you and you don't look at it, you're going to get subjugated. Now, maybe there's no choice. Maybe you have no choice. Maybe the subjugation is going to happen anyway. And that's how some people see. But I don't think so. Even in my worst fever dreams of misery, I don't think that's going to happen. I think that there's enough people that are awake and fighting back right now that the thing we got to watch out for is for the authoritarians are going to try to wreck as much as they can to get everybody into a position of submission or fear or like brinksmanship. They're trying to hold the world hostage, if you will. And they're really trying. It's like when you corner an animal that's been wounded, they're not just going to like lay down and let you finish them off. They're going to attack you. And we're in the middle of like the early stages of that. And that's why it's getting so rough out there. That's why so much stuff is designed to make you upset. And I'm going to go through this again. I'm telling you this like in a rare moment of lucidity where I realize what's going on. Like, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, but it won't be long before some of this gets to me again. It's going to happen. So when it does, just realize that's what's happening. It's not that it's that bad. It's not that I'm suffering. It's not that the world's terrible. It's that sometimes we let things get to us. So I guess that's sort of part of the first part of this stream that I really wanted to talk about is it's multi-layered. It's not just current events. It's not just psychology, and it's not just spirituality. It's, as usual, a trinity of reality. And reality is a holistic thing. Reality, as you see it, is a holistic metaphor. It's not even reality. This is a metaphor. That's a metaphor for clapping, and you don't know what actual clapping is. And all of this is the same way. So yeah, right now I feel better. I've let some of it go. I've looked at it and said, yep, this is what it is. Well, I'm going to do something else today. I'm going to focus on something else. I'm going to do things that I have control over. I'm not going to be upset by the fact that I've written about 3 books worth of material, but I haven't published one of them because they just feel like rambling, you know, going off in 10 different directions. It's like anxiety-filled ramblings, and they're not really helpful. They're not what I want them to be. So I've just said, you know what, fuck it. I'm not going to worry about it right now. I'm just going to try to enjoy my day. You know, I woke up early. I had a good night's sleep. And I woke up early today and I looked up and I said, that was a cool dream I had last night. And I let that be what I started my day with. So, you know, one could say this is also how you deal with trauma, because we're all being traumatized right now. A lot. Like, that's a big part of what's going on. It's a lot of trauma response going on. So we're all traumatized by the last 2, 3, 4 years, however long for you it's been. And we're all being traumatized by society, by everything. And it's hitting everywhere. I mean, when E.A. Coedding got deplatformed, whether you loved him or hate him, that's a signal that even he can be deplatformed over very little. Anyone can be deplatformed. Anything could happen. The community could break apart. Everyone's having witch wars and all this stuff. So what do we do about it? Well, maybe there's nothing we do about it. Maybe we accept that that's what's happening. And we just see to our own needs. We see to what matters to us and our families and our lives and our spirits. And it's sort of like, I don't want to really compare it to Christian faith in that you have faith that God's going to fix it. You need to have faith that your divinity is always in control of your life. Your divinity is always doing everything. The worst and the best things that happen in your life experience is your divinity. That your divine will is inevitable. It is the only thing that can happen. People don't realize that. Like, you think that like free will is a matter of choice. If you feel a sense of choice in a situation, you're not actually exercising your free will. Free will feels effortless and inevitable, like you don't have a choice. Actually, it's a little bit paradoxical. When you're truly free and unlimited and uninhibited, you don't feel a sense of choice because there is no choice. You simply do as you will without any hesitation. It is done. It is a thing. Like it doesn't feel like you're on a track. It feels like you were always going to go that way, though. It's like you don't feel like a slot car that's like stuck in a wedge and has to go this way. You don't feel forced, but you feel like no matter what you're doing, that was always what you were supposed to do. And that's what free will feels like when you're living it. And it's a liberated feeling because you don't look at things and go, oh, I should have done this, or, oh, what should I do? You literally just act and you feel like, even no matter how it turns out, even if it was like the stupidest thing you ever did, it was what you were supposed to do. It was what you were meant to do. It's what you intended to do. It's what your highest will truly wanted. So, all right, now that I've ranted for like a good half hour, let me go. I see a lot of people chatting, and I don't know if people are like being bitches or what. So let me go through. I'm going to scroll it around here. I think people are talking to each other. That's pretty cool. Let's see. How far did I miss? Let's see. Oh, not too, actually quite a bit. Holy crap. All right, let's see. And super chats are open, of course, if you guys really want my attention, or you can put it in all caps and I will notice it if you have questions. So for the next half hour or so, because I'm only going to be doing like an hour and a half today. If you have questions or there's something I didn't get to, or there's something you really want me to talk about, give me, obviously, super chats go to the front of the line. I'm not, give me that money. I'm going to grift you a little bit. But what I really want is, if you want me to notice your question, put it in all caps. That's the other way. So if you're poor like I am, just put it in all caps. That's fine too. All right, let's see. I don't know what that is. Let's see. Ali Alchemist says, yeah, life's been wild. I did read your book, The Infernal Vampire, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Necro Nicky's here. What's up? I didn't see it because I was jabbering away. Conscientia Divinus, what's up? Never seen you before. Welcome. Rona North, you love my content. Thank you for my honesty. Oh, thank you. You're welcome. I kind of can't help it. I'm not actually autistic, but I feel like I'm on the spectrum at least a little bit. I think I'm I forget on what stupid online tests, because they're all bullshit, so I don't go by those. But I definitely have a few autistic traits, that's for sure. And one of them is honesty. I can't stand lies. I don't like people lie to me, and I don't like, lying to other people. I can't stand it. White lies, obviously oh, honey, I didn't get you anything for Christmas. Oh, meanwhile, I'm sitting on a, beautiful thing. But actual lies, like actual disingenuous lying, I don't like it. I don't feel like it's necessary. I can get everything I want by being honest. You know, I've never had a reason, except for maybe to escape, like, you know, something. I've never had a reason to lie. And generally I don't like to lie. It really bothers me. Like it screws with my cognitive dissonance, you know, like I hate cognitive dissonance. I hate it. I don't do well with, when someone tells me the sky is not blue and I'm looking at a blue sky, right? It bothers me, unless I understand that they're going for a deeper metaphor, of course. But if I'm looking at something and they say, oh, that's, you know, I don't know, something that's like, you know, whatever you can imagine, it bothers me. And I'm very sensitive. I can sense when people are lying pretty well, and it really gets to me. Let's see. Stephen Kosovic says, to be super spiritual and isolate yourself in some cave or mountain is not spiritual at all. It's irresponsible, as MP Hall put it out. Well said, Stephen. I agree with that completely. Being spiritual doesn't mean you ignore things like that. That's ridiculous. That's exactly what I'm saying. So there's three responses. One is to ignore it. One is to be afraid and get hysterical. And the other one is to roll with it and to be like the nature of water, as Bruce Lee would say, and find a solution. But even if you can't, you accept it the way it is. A serial Crobot, what's up, brother? Bonjour. He says, bonjour. I don't speak French, but I do have a little bit of French in me. Blade and Cloaks here. Let's see. Yeah. Shadow Doc says, oof, the beginning of the coof. What a fun time that was. Some genius decided to start working through the Shadownomicon during a pandemic. Yeah, that wasn't the smartest thing, was it? Or maybe it was the best time. Let's see. Don't mind me, guys. I'm just reading your comments. I'm catching up. Just reading. I'm not going to read them all out loud. Trying to find the good comments. Like I said, make them all caps or, okay, there we go. We got a super chat. I'll get to that in just a second. Thank you. I'll read that in just a minute. Eddie says, if we're going Mad Max, DH Thorne is going to be Blaster with Fleshy on his back as Master. I like that you think that, but that's totally not me. I'm way more likely to be, if you played the Mad Max video game, I would be that dude with the giant backpack who blows smoke in Mad Max's face. That's how I see myself. Who blows the dust that gives them like psychedelic experiences. That's gonna be me, the shaman of the wasteland, the evil shaman of the wasteland. Let's see. Scrolly, scrolly, scrolly. Someone asked, what's that sound? Is it a rat? It's probably my bird. You're probably hearing my bird. He's just chilling over there. Sometimes he gets really chattery when I do a video, which kind of sucks because I love him, but it's like he doesn't talk to me all the time unless I'm like, it's like my dog. Sometimes my dog, like, she won't want to play until I'm doing a live stream, then suddenly she wants to play. It's like, and she is really kind of getting old, so she's just nuts. Ah, Watched by the Watchers. I must know your thoughts on Elden Ring. Dude, I'm like 45, almost 50 hours in. And to say that I love it would be an understatement. That doesn't mean that there aren't things that piss me off, but it's great. I've actually been tempted to do some live streams of Elden Ring, just me playing and maybe having my wife read questions. Maybe I'll even do that tomorrow or something, or maybe Monday or something. I might do a live stream of just me playing that. Like, if you ever watch Razor Fist, he'll do a live stream where he's playing a game and he has his friend asking him questions the whole time. I might do that, but I'm not good at, like, I can't multitask that kind of stuff as well. Like, I'll have to pause the game and talk, and that's gonna drive me nuts. So, like I said, if you ever hang out with me on a game night, you'll see I get real quiet because my ADHD finally gets pacified by the game. Like, I'll just be like in the game. It's like when I write, it's the same thing. Okay, let me get to the super chat. So Rup Karioja says, what is your view on karma? Is it a thing at all? All right, so karma, speaking as a someone not coming from that culture, first thing I want to tell you is that whatever I'm going to say to you is just my perception and understanding of it. I don't know what different traditions think of it that much. I think that most traditions, there's ways of looking at it that are mature, and there's ways of looking at it that are childish and superstitious. The mature ways of looking at it is to not see it as a justice system, like a criminal justice system for the soul. That's ridiculous. It is not a balance of justice. It is not scales of justice. It is not, oh, you got instant karma, like you did X and now the same bad thing happens to you. It's not the idea that you do something bad and it happens to you. That is not karma. That is a Western, or at least a childish interpretation of karma, and that's not what it is. It's never been that. Karma means action, okay? And karmic action is only possible from an egoistic perspective. So when you're looking at the world in a dualistic way, like I am here and you are there, and this is my right hand and this is my left hand, and they somehow compete for reality, that causes karma. So the more you exist in a egoistic way, the more your actions are karmic. And karmic action, they say, builds up. Now, what does that mean? The interesting thing is you can transcend karma pretty much all at once, right? That doesn't mean that the things that you did don't somehow affect that egoistic body that you still inhabit. So just being human means you are subject to an egoistic experience. It's not possible to completely, when they say transcend ego, the idiots think that means you kill your ego and you no longer have one and you're totally selfless all the time. That's bullshit. That is religiosity. That's right-hand path, like fit into this mold or else thinking. The reality is ego is a habitual action of all beings that are mortal. Now, the divine is immortal. The divine is what it is, and mortality is found within the immortality. It's kind of like order is found within chaos, right? It's not the other way around. You don't really find chaos in order, although chaos is a kind of order. Chaos is like a non-word. If you understand what chaos really means, it's not that. But the usual sense of the word chaos, we find order in chaos. That is to say, we find a pattern in randomness, and we say that's the order. And we, as egoistic beings, want that order to be everything. We want that order because that's what we recognize. We don't realize that the thing we don't recognize, that disorder around it, is a different kind of order. It may even be an order. We just can't see why it's orderly, right? So karma is a little bit like this. We look at the world and we look out at the world and we say, well, I did this and that caused that. Well, that's the only way you can cause something in a like I caused that clap is if you have a dualistic approach to reality. If you think that reality is dualistic, you think that you can clap on purpose. If you have a non-dual realization of reality, a truly enlightened view of reality, you realize that there is, and no one did it. That doesn't mean that there is no soul. It means that the soul is the Atman, the ultimate. It is equal to the Brahman. It is one. Okay, it is all one. So there is no person clapping. That clapping person is just sort of like a corridor, a perceptual corridor. It's an aperture for consciousness to realize what's going on. So what is karma in that context? Karma is like reading. It's like reading Lord of the Rings and thinking you're Frodo and getting upset by what Frodo does or doesn't do right in your mind. So when Frodo gets towards the end of the final book in the trilogy and he's getting ready to throw the ring into the fires of Mount Doom and he hesitates, you're like, no! Right? You get like maybe a little like, what are you doing, stupid? And then, of course, you get the scene with, what's his stupid name? Oh my goodness, the little ugly dude. Why can't I think of it? I can't think of it right now. But he gets into that wrestling match and like in the movie bites his finger off and all this stuff. Smeagol, when Smeagol attacks him, and you're like in that moment, and you're thinking you've lost your sense of the fact that you're the one reading the book, and you're so in the moment of the book, you think you're Frodo, and you're mad at Frodo, and you're mad at yourself, like what are you doing? That's karma. That's karma. Karma is this attachment to the goings on of reality, and that causes your suffering. Gollum, Smeagol, yeah, exactly. So that is that is what karma kind of really is. Karma isn't a matter of cause and effect. That's a balancing of the scales. Whoever came up with that was a right-hand path person trying to get you into a pattern of behavior that they could control, right? So there's a lot to untangle here. You have to realize that left-hand path, now I know it means something else to different people in Hinduism and Vedic stuff. Left hand is sinister. It is not evil. It is unorthodox. It is vamchara or vamachara, depending on how you like to say it. It's vamchara, and it means it's like an alternative way. You realize that I'm going to say some heinous stuff, but even in the most heinous thing you can imagine, rapists, murderers, everything, the divine is still there. There is nothing forbidden. The divine can do anything and does everything, but there is nothing to be done. Right? There is no one to do it. There is a reality, but this superficial thing is a metaphor for that deeper reality. Okay? And this idea that karma is somehow this thing that shapes who you are and how you act, you just dualistically made karma your God. You just made karma bigger than you. That's silly. You're all of it. Karma, like Serial Karbad, I hate to disagree, brother. He says karma is memory. It's your life. It is memory, yes. It can be like memory but your attachment to it is what the karma is. See, a lot of things with enlightenment ontology, be it Buddhism or non-duality or any of that stuff, the models are often confused for the reality. People think that the point is to sit there meditating in front of a wall for days going, or the point is to stop having karma by not doing bad things. You can't stop karma by stopping bad things, because if your reason for doing that is to escape your karma, that would be considered a bad thing. So it's silly to think that you can just stop your karma because it's bad. It doesn't work that way. Karma is attachment. It's action. It's attachment to action. It's thinking that you can control any of it. That's karma. And that's why you suffer it. When you start realizing that when they say like someone's approaching enlightenment and so all of their karma comes back to haunt them, the reason that that's like that, in my opinion, from my experience, is because you will go through a phase of all of these regrets, thinking that you did this and you did that. And these are things that are trying to hold you into this egoistic perspective of, this is my pattern, this is who I am, these are my mistakes. It's things that try to validate your ego that much more, instead of letting go of that. So all your karma comes back to challenge you. It's kind of like when the Buddha was challenged by the demons, right? I forget the word that they use for those demons. When the Buddha was challenged by the demons, he sees Venus in the sky, literally Lucifer. He sees Venus in the sky, and he has a moment of epiphany, realizes things, and all the demons come, right, to tempt him. It's like all his karma came back to him, to tempt him into being mortal again, into saying, so for example, if I'm approaching enlightenment, I might go, yeah, but who am I? How can I dare think that I'm God? I've done all these other things. I did this horrible thing. Maybe I beat somebody up when I was there. Maybe I stole something. Whatever your guilt is. Maybe it's something good. Like, yeah, but I did that. I built that empire, that business. That was me. That person exists. So that's what karma's doing. Karma's saying, you did this. You deserve to have recognition for the good and the bad. And here is your karma. So your karma comes back to you. Superstitious people think that means like all the bad things you did in a past life are going to come back to you and haunt you today. It's always your past life. Like, that's the thing about reincarnation people don't get. You're reincarnated every moment of your life. Every moment's a reincarnation. Every moment that you're present as a person with thoughts and dualistic thinking, that's a reincarnation. Right? When you disincarnate is when you're no longer actually attached to this. You can be like quasi, like this is why I say like someone who's not living in a dualistic way right now looks at the world and recognizes that it's all themselves. And at that point, they're no longer incarnate here. They're discarnate. They're in everything. They recognize everything is them. There is nothing to incarnate into because there's no difference between the self and the other. Do you get it? When you realize there's no difference between yourself and the world, there's nothing to incarnate into. You're in all of it. So you can't be not incarnate with it, right? All that dualistic thought goes out your window, and you no longer think of it that way. And so at that moment, even the idea of karma seems absurd to worry about. It's all you. And the only reason that you treat it like karma is because it's bothering you. It's because you're attached to it. It's because you want to think that there's a purpose to it, right? Without some kind of karmic idea, well, I'm going through a journey to become what? What can the ultimate become? The ultimate is already the ultimate. So what is this becoming that you think you're doing? This is all just layers of a game. This is like playing hide and go seek with God and your God playing with yourself. So you've got to realize that. Imagine God's playing hide and go seek, but looking in a mirror and going peekaboo, you know, and like surprising themselves. That's what you're kind of doing. But if you realize that too quickly, part of the fun of the game is not knowing. So you're going to create all of these conflicts in the form of karma. There you go. Maybe, Sarah, you just said it in a way that what you just said is what I was saying. So Sarah says, you just said the same thing that I did. Karma is memory. Memory is attachment. Attachment. That's it. That's correct. Yes, that is correct. I agree with that. The way you said it before, and I'm going to blame this on the English stuff. It didn't say that. It was just karma is memory. It's your life soul path. But when you put it that second way, 100%. I'm glad we agree. And it doesn't matter whether we agree or not, but ultimately it really doesn't matter. You know, it really doesn't matter whether you guys agree with me or not. It's not a matter of everybody's got their own truth. It ultimately doesn't matter, right? This is the game you're playing. You're going to be taking turns being ignorant and wise. So long as you're incarnate as this person, you're going to be ignorant. If you're actually wise, you're not going to feel incarnated into this being anymore. You're going to be discarnate, right? And the ultimate form of discarnation, well, you do it every night when you go into the deepest sense of sleep that you possibly can have. When you have that moment of oblivion, that's not emptiness, that's not nothing. That is everything. You're seeing everything the way it really is, and so you can't relate to it as a human being. So to you, from this position of being awake, that looks like a blank spot, like a stone skipping out of water. You think that like you jumped forward in time, but if you really feel like you know you were there in this emptiness, there was an emptiness, but it wasn't empty, it was actually fullness. That's omniscience. Omniscience to you looks like a great emptiness because you can't comprehend it. Every night when you go to sleep, you're God as God, being everything. It's kind of like they use the metaphor of a lotus blossom opening and closing for a reason. So when consciousness is fully open and fully aware of itself in its proper way, you don't see the world from this little incarnate way. You don't see stars and planets. You see everything at once. That is incomprehensible to the being you are right now, with that lotus being more closed, shall we say. He says, your mom. Can the ultimate become your mom? Okay, let's get the word become out, because there is no becoming. You just are your mom. Literally, you are your mom. Your mom is you. Literally. Even in the most materialistic sense of the word, your mom is you. And so is your dad, right? They're in you. They're part of you. Their DNA, their whatever is you. So even in that way, you are your mother. And vice versa. Okay, let's see. Jasonium says, so the ego death that occurs in some initiations isn't actually destroying the ego per se, but teaching the ego how to detach is how I see it. So ego death is like pulling the mask away and realizing it's just that. It's like, imagine you're standing in front of a mirror and pulling your face off and you see nothing inside. That's ego death. And when you see there's nothing there, you still feel like you exist, but not as a thing. You feel like there's existence, but no one to exist. There's enlightenment, but no one to be enlightened. There are masks, but there's no one wearing them. So the ego is a mask, and it's a mask that's a habitual mask. It's a mask of habitual identity where you say, I did this, I did that, that's happening to me, that happened to me, I did that to them, and they're happening to them, and that's all ego. It's all ignorance. It's a dualistic mindset, and it happens when you think about it. Your thoughts are boxes that you place around things, separating things, right? You're separating things from each other. And as you separate things from each other, that creates senses of attachment to those things as individual things because they validate each other. So in order for me to be me, I can't be you. So if I want to love me, I have to pretend I'm not you. And in order for me to love you, I have to pretend you're not me from a dualistic, egoistic perspective. From the non-dual perspective, people often get it confused that there's two perspectives, a non-dual and a dual. The reality is actually when you're in a non-dual perspective, you can still recognize the dual at the same time. It doesn't go away. It's just not. Here's where the language breaks down. You still recognize the happenings of the delusion, but you don't identify with them anymore. It doesn't mean you completely lose identity. So the ignorance is to think that that ego death means that you suddenly no longer believe you're a person. Ego death doesn't mean that you don't have an ego anymore. It's just you recognize that that ego is not what you're limited to. That ego is just a habitual action in this illusory world. When we say illusory, there's sort of a misunderstanding. It's not purely ideal, like it's just in your mind. It's a superficial metaphor for the higher or deeper or darker reality, depending upon what you like to call it. But the ultimate reality, the Brahman, is invisible from the dualistic perspective because you need things to be hot and cold, up and down, left and right, over here, over there. You need things to be like that to relate to them. And that relationship is that egoistic thing. And when you go into an egoless state, a lot of that breaks down. And the earlier stages of that are easily reached through Zen mindfulness meditations where you glaze the eyes. It's just like gazing. It's exactly like gazing into a crystal ball or something. You go into a mindful state where you soften your gaze, you half lid your eyes. This causes the distinction and lines around things to blur, and you start to realize everything is one happening. Those are the thresholds of the non-dual realization. That's what those are. Justonium said, and I'm going to get to that in the super chat in a second, by the way. I'm sorry if I skipped it, but Justonium's asking me interesting questions. So we could actually reprogram the mass to have an identity that benefits from the alignment of one's own. No, that's the ego asking that question. Who is it that's going to make that reprogramming happen? Who's reprogramming who? There is no duality for there to be a reprogramming. You can't intentionally. How can gold change itself to be more gold? How can gold change itself to be silver? How can silver make itself gold? These are ridiculous questions because there is no one doing the reprogramming. The final layer, when you peel off all of these masks, you realize that it's going to be what it's going to be as per the higher will doing it. And there's no choice. There's no thing to do. You can't force it. This is why there's so many legends and stories of Zen masters having nothing to teach. And yet that enlightens the student. This is why you are put in front of that wall and going, because you're set on a task that's impossible. And the more you try to do it, eventually something clicks. It's sort of like bringing your fingers together and getting a spark to happen. You've got to put yourself into a confrontation with your own inability to do anything because there's nothing to be done. It is. Let me ask you this. When you have a dream at night, can you reprogram that dream? Can you change that dream? Is there a separate dream for you to reprogram, is what I'm getting at. Like, is the dream separate from you at night? Can you make that dream do something else? As if it's something else to be done. And the reason why that's a trick question is because even your desire to do something in the dream, where does that come from? So you're going to say, well, I can have a lucid dream and I can make myself fly when I couldn't before. Okay. Sounds like you're in control, right? When were you not in control? It's kind of like I said before about free will. The illusion is that you have a choice, that you can go A or B. The reality is you're always going to go wherever you're going to go. The choice illusion is the ego saying, I did that, I chose that. That's the ego part. So when you say we can make our masks do what we want them to do, that's that illusion of choice again. You can't do it on purpose. You can't force yourself to become enlightened. It's never going to work. The more you try, the more you're just digging that pit deeper and deeper. The more distant you are from reality, the more you're pulling the wool over your eyes. And you say, I can enlighten myself. No, you can't. No, you can't. It's impossible. This is why this is why so much of this is a game and a charade, because you think that you can do it on purpose, but you can't. There's no one to be enlightened. There is enlightenment, but there's no one to be enlightened. You can't make, can you? So let me put it to you back in a metaphor state again. Can you make Frodo unhappy? When you read Lord of the Rings, is Frodo unhappy? Let's go. So you all know Lord of the Rings, right? There's a part in Lord of the Rings where he's getting more miserable because the rings around his neck dragging him down. He's getting more depressed. He's getting sad. The journey seems more impossible all the time. And Samwise is trying to help him out. I'll carry the ring for a while, Frodo, and all this stuff, right? Was Frodo actually unhappy? If you say yes, then you're living in a delusional world. There is no Frodo. It's just a word on a piece of paper. Frodo doesn't exist. So Frodo isn't really unhappy. He's written to be unhappy. So even Tolkien himself couldn't make Frodo happy or unhappy. He can just write whatever he wants Frodo to be, but he's not. He doesn't exist to be happy. You're the same way. You can't, even though the story could be written so that you're enlightened, there's no one to be enlightened. All right, let me go back up. Let me get that super chat. Conscientia Divinus says, DH, I just wanted to say that I've learned a lot from you, but the one thing that catches me about you is your direct honesty. So many blessings and love for you. Oh, thank you. I do my best, right? I mean, when I say I do my best, I'm going to do what I'm going to do no matter what, but I do my best to communicate that I'm doing it in a way that is as honest as possible. I don't like secrets. I mean, secrets are one thing. I have my personal life, of course, but I don't like secrets in the form of lies. I don't like telling lies just because it's I don't know. It's, to me, it's like one of the worst. I remember like Excalibur, the movie from, I think it was 1981. And there's a scene where Merlin says, when a man lies, he murders a part of the world. And for some reason, that poetic way of putting it just hit me so hard because I felt like that. I felt like when I'm lying, I'm murdering something, right? I feel like the truth is the most important thing. That's not to say that I'm incapable of it. It just means that I don't see a reason to do it unless maybe there's a gun to my head or something, right? I don't like lying. I really don't like it. And I would rather be sincere about this stuff. I would rather, you know, say, if I don't know, I don't know. If I do know, I do know. If I'm suffering, this is why. Because I know why suffering is a part of my experience. It's not something I'm doing to myself. So you'll actually see, like, even as I try to explain it to you guys earlier in the video, as I'm talking about it, I'm like, I did this and then I did that and I let this bother me. And here I am telling you, ironically, about how I don't have any control over that. Right? That's interesting, isn't it? So that's me actually working through that egoistic mask. And at some point, the egoistic mask, I pull it to the side and go, oh yeah, I get it. And that's when the suffering ceases. I realize I'm not the mask. I'm not Frodo. I'm not the guy trying to carry the ring to Mount Doom. I'm the one reading the story, and I wrote the story. And I wrote the story to be the way it is because it's the most interesting story I could possibly read. Right? And then I realized that I have love for myself, which others misidentify as pride or arrogance. I love myself just the way I would love you. Because you're all part of my dream. I'm dreaming. So I had a really cool dream last night. Did I say I loved myself in that dream? Did I say I loved the castle I dreamt about? Did I say I loved the people in it? No, I say I loved the dream. Right? Think about it. When you have a dream and you say that was a cool dream or a bad dream, yes, there's parts of it that are better or worse, but don't you say I I felt this way about the dream, right? So when you're in a more of an enlightened state, you feel a sense of blissful appreciation for all of this, the good and the bad. And there's nothing that your body can do about it. In fact, I could be sitting there rambling about the most ridiculous shit, and the true me is sitting there going like, this is pretty fucking cool. I could be doing something horrible. I could be hurt. Like, I remember one time I got a really nasty splinter under my thumbnail. I have a picture somewhere of it. It was like, I managed to scrape like a chunk of wood that was like, I mean, it went all the way up, like halfway up my thumb, and it went way in there. And I didn't even yelp. I looked at it. It hurt like a fucker. Like, I felt tears coming in my eyes. My heart was pounding looking at this thing like, man, that could get infected. And for whatever reason, I felt, when I say detached, I mean in a non-attached way. I felt like, that's my thumb. That's bad. I accepted it for what it was. I finished what I was doing. It took like another 2 minutes. I finished putting the stuff that I had to do. I was working at the nursery, so it's a hard job. Finished doing what I had to do, hopped down. I knew it wasn't going to make a difference if I jumped down that minute or not. The wood sealing the wound, nothing to worry about. So I jumped down, and when it was over, I showed everybody. I'm like, yeah, look at this. They're like, wow, that's pretty bad. And I go and I calmly managed to pull it out on the first try, and the whole thing came out. It was like this fucking long, and it was like almost like a millimeter, maybe 2 millimeters wide at the end. It was like having a piece of like bamboo shoved under your fingernail. And I was so like in a state of just acceptance and bliss that this was happening. I wasn't upset about it. And I think back, I'm like, did I have any control over it? No, I just did what I did. And that's what I'm talking about, free will. Like, again, it's not a choice. I didn't have a choice in how I responded to that. My divine will just did as it would. And I just flowed with it. Just whoosh, right? My heart was thumping. I felt like tears in my eyes because it hurt, and it was definitely worrying. But, you know, it was a cool moment. Like, I look back on it like a war story. Like, this is cool. If it was really that bad a thing, would I be thinking about it like that? No. All right, let me scroll down here. Let me see. Mr. Zombie says, watch Lord of the Rings a few times, and the silly hobbits always make the same mistakes. He never learns. I know. Like, I've watched it like 5 times, and it's always the same story. Like, maybe like next time they'll like give it, and they'll just leave it with, well, that's right. They don't come across him. I'm just going to shut up. Lowland Alcine asks, if I reincarnated as a pet dog, would I be happier than reincarnating as a human? No. Happiness and bliss is inevitable, no matter which. Jasonium, you're still, I'm going to say this, like, this is not a criticism of you. This is a criticism of what you're saying. So can the conscious, unconscious, and subconscious play a part in how the ego is portrayed, or is the ego based on a set of predetermined characters? You're still thinking dualistically. While you're thinking dualistically, that question that's an illusory question. You're asking about 2 things as separate from each other. So long as you're doing that, none of my wisdom will connect. You have to realize that there is the separation that you're putting between all of those, as if they can influence each other, is the problem. This is why it's still a sticking point. This is why it's not there yet. When I am in that state, I feel the same kind of suffering that everyone else does. When I'm not, I feel like myself. Don't have any control over it. It just is what it is. The idea of control requires there to be something to be controlled and someone to control it. The idea that you can influence something requires that there's an influencer and a thing to be influenced. This is basic, fundamental, rational thinking, right? The illusion is that I caused a clap when I did that. The reality is there was a clap and then the mutual arising event of hands going like that. The hands did not cause the clap. The clap is always there. The idea that 2 hands cause it is the illusion of duality. But we get so hung up on the little details. It's just like in Zen when they say Zen is a finger pointing at the moon, and all too often people get hung up on the finger. They think that the language, they think that the metaphors, they think that these things are the reality. And so we get hung up. We think karma is this thing we've got to deal with, and our consciousness is a thing we got to deal with. And the whole time I just want to ask, who the fuck is asking the question? If you can find the person where these things are originating from, then you'll have your answer. And this is what all of these masters have said throughout time. It's always been the same kind of non-answer. It's a paradoxical answer, but it's so obvious once you get it. It's like you can't see it any other way, really. You can forget, but you don't have a choice in it. So there's nothing to be done. I can't sit there and say, well, if I act this way, I'll feel better. That is the dualistic way of thinking about it. The feeling better is only going to be a thing when I feel, again, there's the saying, there's the saying that goes, I saw it today, and this was a big thing for me, that goes, we think that when everything falls into place, we'll be happy and at peace. But the divine tells us that if you're happy and at peace, everything falls into place. The truth is the second statement. The lie is the first statement. Because anybody who's had everything fall into place, you feel happy for a while, but then you go, well, now I'm sad again. I don't know why. Because it's not about things being in place. It's not about anything you can do. Happiness and bliss is always there. You just cloud it with your binary delusion, with your dualistic delusion. You cloud the enlightenment with your belief that you can cause enlightenment. The thing is, the reason why it seems like you can cause enlightenment is because, well, I got to be honest with you, there's nothing that causes it. There's people who can be sitting there on a beach just watching the sunset with no idea of what non-duality is or enlightenment, and they can just woof, and they get it. It just occurs to them, like they didn't need to be told. They just, oh, I'm the universe. And it just clicks, and they get it. No thought, there was no method, there was no meditation, no freaking Kundalini awakening. None of that was necessary to realize your divinity. None of it. And then there's people who spend years and they feel like there's a method to it. What you don't realize is it's always a spontaneous realization. Even when you feel like there was a path that led there, the realization itself was a spontaneous realization. When you take 2 plus 2 and equals 4, right? Does the 2 plus 2 cause the 4? If you think that, you got it fucked. You don't quite get it yet. The 2 plus the 2 doesn't cause the 4. The number 2 and the number 2 are just systems of writing. The number 4 is a system of writing. The intuitive moment is when you realize there's nothing there that makes you think 4. There's an intuitive, spontaneous realization of 4 as the result of 2 plus 2. Math by nature, the logic of math is actually an intuitive process. We think it's a machine that adds together. But they don't do that. An equal sign means it's equal on both sides. None of them cause anything. There's a realization that is not caused by the 2 plus the 2. The 2 plus the 2 is just a way for you to look in the right direction. So let me put it like this. That's west for me. And the sun's going to be setting soon. The mistake that most of you guys are making is thinking that 2 plus 2 equals 4 in the same way that me pointing at the sunset equals a sunset. That's where you're getting hung up. You're all thinking, I shouldn't say all, but most of you are thinking that my pointing at the sunset caused the sunset. That the 2 plus the 2 caused the 4. 4 was always there. The 2 plus 2 was always there. You have to look in the direction of the 4 to see it. The 2 plus the 2 causes your consciousness to go to where the 4 is and go, 4. It doesn't cause a 4 any more than my finger pointing at the sunset causes the sunset. Correct, Sniper. The sun never sets, but again, as a metaphor. Lolan Asin says, it sounds like you were saying the cause is less important than the effect because the effect, no, that's a dualistic binary thought again. That's not, I'm saying that, this is where the language is so hard. The clap is an illusion too. The word that you use for a clap, the word that you use for the effect is an illusion too. All of it is always there. All of it. The hands, the claps, all of it is always there. It is your egoistic illusion that makes you think that that caused the clap. But that, everything about that was always there. All of it was always there. The clap is not a result of the hands. This idea of cause and effect is the duality of illusion. Because consciousness has limited its scope from seeing everything all at once, it's only seeing a little bit right now. Think of it like a telescope. If you just look at the sky, you see the whole night sky mostly, whatever your eyes can see. It's a big 180 degree almost, if not 180 degree perspective of the universe. And you look up at space and you see all these stars. But if you want to see that star really well, you've got to like shrink your little aperture of awareness down to a little tiny circle, something smaller than what's in the middle of my fingers there, and then magnify that up with magnifying lenses. In essence, your consciousness is going out into that space, and you're seeing that through an aperture. You had to limit what you see to see the detail. Well, the divine has to limit its attention into this little bubble of you to have this mortal experience. And in so, it loses track of the fact that it's not doing any of this. It's all there already. It's like looking into a piece of marble and thinking that you see people playing a game of sports when there's really nobody in there. It's just blobs on a pattern. You think it's all really happening. So you think that caused the clap. That never caused the clap. And the clap never caused the hands either. Although sometimes I say it like that. That's a way to mess with your head. The hands and the clap, all of that, none of that was real. Conscious Divinus says, it's all manifested. I'm going to say it's all planned. Here's the problem with that, though. From a dualistic perspective, yes, you could say it's all planned, because that's the only way to relate to it. But the reality is it's not planned either. Your divine will is not planned. It simply happens. The plans happen after the fact, guys. The planning is actually a result of the happening. The happening is inevitable, and you can't change it. You can't plan it. You can't predict it. It is what it is. The predictions, the planning, the cause, the effect, all of that comes after the reality. The reality is always there. The ego causes the ego plans, the ego thinks, the ego determines, the ego says that 2 plus 2 equals 4, but 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 4. 4 equals 2 plus 2 and 2 plus 2. There is no cause in that relationship. Lolan says, this sounds like quantum theory where the observer is more important than the cause or effect. It sounds like, but that quantum theory is still dualistic in its foundation. That's why they don't understand it. So who's the observer? What is the observer? It's not separate from the observed any more than your character in a dream is separate from the rest of the dream. When you go to sleep tonight, whatever you dream about, all of that is you. If someone attacks you in your dream, who attacked you? They didn't exist. They're a figment of your dream. There is no other you there. It's all you. If quantum scientists, like if you get a hold of a non-dual quantum scientist, they get what I'm saying. They'll be more inclined to say something like what I'm saying. They'll tell you that more than likely, If they drop their mind to a material state for a moment and say, yes, these waves of quantum probability are real observations, but those quantum probabilities do happen, all of them. And it is the consciousness of the divine focused into the pinpoint of the here and now that is limited to just one of those possible outcomes. All of them happen because none of them happen because there is no happening, but all of them exist. The idea of them, even the word happening, is a reification of experience. Experience says something happened. The reality is nothing happened. It was always like that. The happening is our consciousness. Okay, let me reset a little bit. I'm going to use the Lord of the Rings analogy again. Does Frodo travel to Mount Doom? So everybody reading in the comments right now, answer this question. Does Frodo travel to Mount Doom? So let's answer that question, everybody. Does Frodo travel to Mount Doom? Yes or no? While I'm waiting for those answers, Aldo Green says, I think therefore I am, or I am therefore I am. Which is the truer statement? All statements are false. Statements are illusions. They're not real. Thoughts are not proof of existence. The observation of them could be. Thoughts are something you observe. Okay, so I got enough answers here. I'm going to go and I'm going to start responding to it. So the question was, does Frodo travel to Mount Doom? The correct answer is no. The correct answer is no, because Frodo isn't real. There is no Frodo. There is no Mount Doom. There are words on a page which you reify into mental images that tell you Frodo is a hobbit that has to walk from A to B and drop something into a pit. The reality is not Frodo. Frodo does not exist. He can't travel. He's an idea. Ideas don't travel. Ideas don't travel. Frodo's an idea. By the way, you're an idea too. When you realize that, you get a lot. When you figure out that you're an idea, the thing that you think you are is just an idea. When you say D.H. Thorne is sitting there in a hooded robe, that's an idea. There is no D.H. Thorne here. There's no you here. It's just words that we use to wrap around experiences so that we can understand them. That's dualistic thinking. When you step away from that, you realize that there is no D.H. Thorne. It's just an idea, and just like Frodo, D.H. Thorne can't go to the DMV and sign up for a new license. Yes, there's the experience of DMV and license and all of that, but there is no DMV. There is no Thorne. There is none of that is real. Those are just things that we use as ideas. We reify these experiences into ideas, and then those ideas get reified again, and that's your illusory level on top of all of it. I'm not sure why people ask me about my makeup tips. I don't wear makeup. What, I got like a red spot on my nose? I was pinching my nose earlier. I wish I wore makeup. I should start. I wouldn't be ashamed of it. I would admit it if I did. My wife, like, she wanted me, like, I started wearing like black nail polish for a little while, and I thought it looked stupid. Like, I never, like, as goth as I am, I always thought, like, on other people it looks cool, but on me I feel like I just look like an idiot when I wear black. And then, like, when I try like eyeliner and shit, I want to like it, and for whatever reason I just feel weird. I don't like it. I feel like I'm already pale and pasty enough, so I don't need any kind of makeup really. Probably the only thing I would do would be like that, like in Conan, the first movie, when he has like the camo paint. Like, I love that, like across. I might try that, but I wear glasses, so it throws it all off, you know? It's okay, Jin. You might have heard from the beginning. I don't know. I should do a makeup tutorial simply because I don't know anything about it. So it would be the most ridiculous thing you ever saw, dude. It would be so freaking funny. I should do one. I should have my wife help me do one. I'll just be like, I don't know, and just like have lipstick all over my face and shit. That'd be freaking great. So Nikki says, everything is imagination, but if an imaginative character travels to an imaginative mountain, it's just that, nothing is real. And I would add to that with the saying that there is a reality. It's just that what you see is a superficial metaphor for the reality. So you're not actually, so when you say there's no mountain, that's true, but there is something there inspiring the mountain. Just like when you say there's no Frodo, there is something there inspiring a Frodo. So going back to the Frodo, does Frodo travel to Mount Doom? No, Frodo does not travel to Mount Doom, but there is something inspiring the Frodo traveling to Mount Doom idea. Once that clicks in your head, once you figure that out, once you figure out that relationship, a lot will open up for your mind when you realize that. You'll realize that it's consciousness, that it's not moving, but consciousness is reading reality one moment at a time, like you're reading a book. Once that starts to trigger and make sense in your head, you realize then, well, who's controlling the reading then? Can Frodo change his behavior? No, he can't. Can D.H. Thorne change his behavior? No, he can't. But consciousness can choose to read a different book. Consciousness can choose to read a version of The Lord of the Rings that's a choose your own adventure. If consciousness wanted to, consciousness could go to page 14 and go back to when Frodo was in the Hobbitville or whatever it was. I forget what it's called. Hobbiton, right? I think it's Hobbiton. Yeah. So if consciousness does what it will. Consciousness does what it will, and there's no sense of choice. There's no sense of control. There is just doing. Just like a dream, you don't have a sense of control in a dream, but you're doing all of it. Even a lucid dream, you'll have the illusion of control over a lucid dream, but you were always controlling the lucid dream. Don't you get it? Even when you were having a lucid dream, you go, I can control the dream now. I'm going to fly. As I do like a Roman push. I can fly. Fucker, you could always fly. Nothing held you back. Like you were always doing all of it. A lucid dream doesn't mean you suddenly have control. You always had control from the beginning. The fact that you thought you didn't was the illusion. And if you realize that, you realize that there's nothing to control. It is just what you're doing, right? The idea of control, this sounds like I'm splitting hairs on terminology. The idea of control requires that there be a controller and a controllee. There must be something to control. But if it is all one non-dual essence, if it's all one absolute, there's nothing to control and there's nothing to be controlled. Do you get it? There is nothing you can do in a dream. The dream is what it is, and it's going to be what it is. This is why when people say, Thorne, do you believe, it sounds like you believe in a very fatalistic, deterministic universe. No, dipshit, you're determined. Like you are determination. You are, so people say, you believe in a causal universe where you can't change things. Motherfucker, you are causality itself. How can anything be against you? You are it. Oldie Green. Okay, so Odell Green, you're getting closer. He says, we are conscious thought narrating the ideas of our lives then? So your ego asked that question, am I my thoughts? No, you're not your thoughts. Your thoughts are just an echo in your head. You're not even the thoughts. You are what? If you're not the thoughts, if you're not the ideas, what are you? You know how I know this? I talk about this so much. For some people, you may not realize this, but think of a sensory deprivation tank, like those float tanks you can go in. Imagine you go into a float tank and you go into a deep meditative state. So your mental processes are no longer chattering. So you're not talking to yourself habitually in your head. You're not picturing things. You're just present and focusing on your breathing. And at some point that breathing becomes either boring or whatever, so you don't pay as much attention to it. Eventually even that goes away. What's still there? When you have no thoughts, no experiences, no nothing, yet you're still there, what is it that's still there? There's nothing to identify, and yet there's an experience going on. That realization is what you, that emptiness, and it's not empty, by the way. It appears empty, but it's not. That unspeakable thing is the absolute. That consciousness is the absolute. So you're not your thoughts. You're not conscious thought. Thought is a thing that happens like an echo in consciousness. Just active awareness. Good way to put it, says Stephen Kosovich. Just conscious, just awareness. And it's not even there. There is no there. There is just awareness. There is just consciousness. There's no there associated with it. There is just consciousness. You're welcome, Old Degree. Like I said, I don't think you're thinking it quite the way I'm thinking it yet, but you're thinking. And I like that you're thinking. And I love the Boltzmann brain thing, because Boltzmann brains are a fascinating thing, because it's wrong to think that we're a Boltzmann brain thinking that we're people, but it's much more in line with where I'm going with this. I've thought that too, right? That was an early realization of mine. Well, what if I'm a Boltzmann brain floating in space and I'm just dreaming that all of this is real? That's a step in the right direction. The problem is then you got to explain the universe around the Boltzmann brain. That universe sitting around the Boltzmann brain is also in the mind of the Boltzmann brain. Which is more real? Blade Cloak says, consciousness is good enough for me. Seems quite pleasant. The problem is consciousness is associated with the mental activity of the mind. Consciousness is associated with thoughts, visions, feelings, sensations. That's the Western mentality of consciousness. That's not what consciousness is. Western thinking conflates consciousness for the activities that are experienced in consciousness. That's the problem. That's the dualistic part of Western thinking. That's why Western thinking is really good at making machines and technology and terrible at spirituality. Gotta tell you. And I don't like making it because it's not racist, but it is cultural. The Western culture, specifically European, American, Western culture, is very dualistic, and that is why it's really good at making machines and technology. But it is absolutely fuck all shit at spirituality. Terrible at it. You go to India, you go to ancient Greece even, the Platonists, the Platonists, ancient India, even Egypt a little bit. And you go to all these places, spirituality was what they were good at. And materialism too, like especially go to Egypt, they had some amazing shit. But India, where these things are much more common once upon a time, well, they still are common. They've been sort of perverted. I shouldn't idolize India. I really don't mean to do that, because if you go to India and you go, there's a lot of people who still don't get it, but they're more, it's more immersed in their culture to realize the things I'm saying. They're pretty fucking smart people, by the way, when it comes to making machines and technology. I'm not trying to imply they're not. But Western society is way more, in the last 200-300 years, is all about the thinking. It prioritized the left brain and ignored the right brain. It says the feelings and the imagination and all that is bullshit. The only thing that matters is things that I can prove with I can't even say it. You know the word I'm trying to say. Epistemical reasoning are the only things that are real. And they got all fucked up thinking that their models were the reality. Western people like you guys, you all live in a simulacrum. This is not real. You live in a simulacrum where you think that this is real, and it works. So it's fine. It's not like I'm saying you're broken or you're bad. I'm just saying, and it's nothing wrong with the simulacrum. We all love it. It's fun. But you prioritize the simulacrum. You think the simulacrum is the reality, and and consciousness bubbles up into that. Like, what are you, fucking stupid? I'm saying that as a joke. What are you, fucking retarded? I say that as a joke. Western thinking is consciousness is an emergent phenomenon of particles bumping together. They couldn't have it more backwards. They could, and then because they get it so backwards, when they hear me say that, they think that that means that consciousness makes particles bubble together. Like, no, I'm not saying that consciousness causes matter, you ding dong. You still don't get it, and you probably won't, because it's not easy. It's not easy to make that leap of realization. You know, the only way you can make this leap of realization is to not think about it. You have to have the experience of it. You have to have gnosis of it, and not, people confuse gnosis with thoughts and words. Gnosis is not thoughts and words. Gnosis is an experiential awareness. You can have, how many of you guys, answer me in the chat, how many of you guys can completely tune out all thinking? That is to say, there's no subvocal thought, there's no pictures, there is just presence. You're just in the moment. How many of you can do that? I do it all the time. Like that's my favorite way to be. I'm not saying 24/7, but I spend more time aware of that thoughtless state than I do thinking. That's not to say that my mind shuts off. Like that's not it either. I'm not a zombie. What I'm saying is how many of you guys spend most of your time thinking that's a cup, that's a this, I got to pay my rent, blah, 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 always a subvocal? Or how many of you guys constantly picture things, whatever form of thinking you're doing? So how many of you guys live in that mental state, and how many of you guys live out of it? Some of you guys, I think, are going to tell me that you don't, and I can actually tell some of you have. I can tell some of you have engaged that empty state. I just can, because it doesn't take a lot of my explaining for you to go click. And sometimes you explain it and I go click, right? Like we're on a similar page. Like Nikki, I think you have existed in that empty state. I do. I can tell by the way, I don't have to lead you into the answers. I think you don't need me to lead you at all. You already know. Like, you know, you've already experienced the world from a non-thought position. You've just been things. You've just experienced without thinking. That's one of the reasons why that is the most important state of meditation, to reach that state of empty mind, or drop mind, I guess, as EA characterized it. It's a much older, it's found in almost all of these cultures with meditation. This idea of dropping the analytical thought mind and just existing. You realize you can still have realizations without thoughts. You can still have amazing realizations without thoughts. It's just there, but there's nothing to think. There's no picture. There's no thought. It's just you're aware of it. I can't explain it any other way. There's no words to explain it because it's a wordless kind of state. I write from that state and then I translate that into... So there's no thoughts. It's just my fingers wiggling, and I'm amazed at what's appearing on the screen sometimes because I'm not thinking about it. It's just flowing out. So when you enter that state, Nikki says, I get in that state every day for meditative practice. When you can get in that state, even for a little bit every day, sooner or later, like the two electrodes coming closer together, you realize you're not your thoughts. You're none of those things. You exist as consciousness, and everything that you think is you is a thing consciousness is experiencing within itself. You can tune it in or out at will. You do every night when you go to sleep. You tune all of this out. Does that mean it's not there? Does that mean it doesn't exist? The inspiration for it never goes away. Just like the book, when you close the book of the Lord of the Rings, the inspiration for Frodo doesn't go away, but Frodo might go away because you're not reading it anymore. Let's see. My Spanish is rusty, so I'm going to do my best. Danny Mitz says, "Saludo desde." I can't speak it for shit, but I can sort of read it and understand. San Nicolas still is Gardazo. San Nicolas from Mexico. Ooh, I only get a piece of that. I'm going to have to use Google Translate to understand that whole thing. I work with Spanish guys, and they're always amazed that I can't speak a lick of Spanish, but I can understand what they're saying half the time. It's something to do, like a combination of my empathic, and I have that conscious empathy. I'm not that feeling empathy. I don't feel what you feel, but I consciously am aware of what you're feeling. I can sort of figure out what people are talking about, and I pick up on some of the Latin words that I know. And somehow I put it all together, and they could be talking about something, and I'll know that I can, just with enough words, I know what they're saying to me half the time, and I can follow Spanish instructions. It's pretty funny, but not in this case. I didn't quite get that. Stephen Kosovich asks, Thorne, have you felt when you entered that state how time slows down sometimes, no time feeling? So, The thing about time is it's so subjective. It's one of the clues of the universe. And it's one of the things that physicists get so fucky, is they're confusing, for people who are so about objectivity, they confuse the subjective experience of time for something that's real. Time is tricky to them because they think it is a thing that moves, or a force, or a power, or a dimension of travel. And they feel like there's an arrow of time because we experience events in a way that look like they cause each other. The thing is, even in the deepest meditative state, unless you've completely blacked out and gone into sleeping, basically, you still experience what others would refer to as time, but you're not aware of time as a passing. To have mortal experience requires ignorance of the absolute of timelessness, which means you cannot, if you're sitting there in a meditative posture, if you hear Om, you're experiencing time. But time itself is part of the illusion, right? Time itself is part of the illusion. That is to say, the experiences of time. The fact that you feel like things lead into each other and that there's a sound, even the seeing, even the act of seeing. Because let me tell you something. If you were to take even 1 solid second of supposed time and compress that into a moment and blast it into your eyes, you'd be blind from how complicated and a blur of events it was. Imagine all of the light from your computer screen hitting you in the eye at once from just 1 second's worth. It would just be a blur and a blinding flash. You couldn't see it. It wouldn't have any material experienceable thing. So when you enter meditation, this idea that you can like not experience time, you may lose measure of time, right? So you may not realize that it's been a second or 5 minutes. That's true. You may completely black out and not experience anything. You're actually experiencing everything, by the way. As I said earlier, that oblivion state is everything all at once. But when you're having this feeling of there's no time, it's like things are still happening. So you're still experiencing mortal time because you're still a little bit in a dualistic state. But time is a reified idea. Time itself isn't a thing. It's a non-thing. It's like a shadow. You look at it on the wall and you go, there's a shadow over there. Well, there really isn't a shadow there. A shadow is an absence of something. A shadow is a space where the light isn't hitting as strongly. And so you look, you say, that's an object because it's got an outline. But it's more like a hole. Well, time's more like a hole. Sonny says, well, you don't have responsibilities? Sure. I agree. When you don't have responsibilities in the moment, time really does blur. There's no question. When I'm having a good time playing Elden Ring, I can lose track of time real easily. So yeah, time, Jasonium says, isn't time an illusion and a concept devised by man for a unit of measurement? May be wrong. Time doesn't exist in the universe and the megaverse. So time is a relativistic perspective. Just like up, down, left, and right are perspectives from a relativistic position. Time requires a relativistic position, which means consciousness must sharpen itself into a moment of here and now to experience either one. If consciousness was fully aware of all things at all times, there would be no sense of time at all. It would just be a boop. It would be a nothing as far as your little mortal state is concerned. So let me repeat that again. It's probably the most important thing I just said. The idea of up, down, left, and right requires that you be here, requires a subjective, relativistic position in the middle of all of it. Time is exactly the same. If you are at the first moment of time, let's pretend time had a beginning. Let's just, for argument's sake, let's take like a very materialistic, Copenhagen interpretation of reality where there's a Big Bang and time started the moment the Big Bang started. If you were at that first moment of time, could you have a concept of time? No. Because there's nothing before you. So if you were to travel all the way down until you reached the bottom and there was nothing further down from you, could there be a down? If there's no down, could there be an up? No. So space and time requires a central position always in itself. No matter where you go in the universe, no matter when, you're always at the very center of everything. That is not an accident. That is not just a quirk of physics. That is literally the reason all of this exists, is because you see yourself from the center of it. No matter where you go, that's the only way you can have these experiences. The only way you can have an experience is to not have all of them at once. It's to concentrate the conscious awareness into the tiniest little perspective that will give you meaningful experiences. And you could go bigger than we are and smaller than we are and still get pretty good. You could be like a little amoeba and you have an amoeba's experiences, which are pretty simple, right? It's literally, they might not feel anything. They just sort of exist and they have like actions and they sense things, but they sense things in a way amoebas do. Or you could be a giant redwood and you're huge and who knows what they feel. Or you could be a big blue whale. No matter how big you are, you're in a mortal scale, and that mortal scale has senses that are relatable. But you could be a star. Who knows what that would sense? Their senses are completely alien. You have no way of knowing. A planet, a universe, a galaxy. So you see where I'm getting with this? All of this, to have a human experience of time, space, and human experience, you have to be shrunk into this little thing. Another good analogy is, if you go look, just look around you right now, right? And you see a whole room, probably. Or maybe wherever maybe you're outside. You see everything that's visible in this field of vision is all there all the time. But you only pay attention to about that much of it. About the size of a silver dollar held out at arm's length. That's all you actually see clearly. Everything else gets more and more blurry when you get out from that center. So imagine that like consciousness. Consciousness sees everything, but has to focus its attention into a very small little aperture of attention, and it pays attention to that, and that gives it the illusion of time and space. So what happens when you reverse that? What happens when you blow it all up and see it all at once? It looks like nothing you can imagine. You can't see it. Just like even 1 second's worth of time, if you could see everything that happens in a second's worth of time, that's not a very long time. 1/1000. 1/1000th's worth of experience. To capture all of that and experience it in 1 instant would be invisible. You couldn't see it. That doesn't mean it didn't exist, though. It didn't mean that it wouldn't flash. It doesn't mean that, you see what I'm saying? So to see it as 1 second's worth of experience, that instant has to be drawn out into a second. So this idea of time is just that illusion playing out. If you saw reality for what it was, there is no time. There's no space. It's a singularity of being. It looks like one solid, full. Even the word multiverse loses meaning. It looks like chaos. It looks like emptiness that's completely full of everything. There's no empty space in the sense of emptiness. Everything is full, and it is so full that there's no distinction, so it looks empty. It looks like a black wall of marble. There's marble there, but you don't see any distinction, so it looks like a big black emptiness. Consciousness does this every night when you go to sleep. All right, guys, so this is pretty much going to be it. This is about 1.5 hours. That's where I was aiming. Actually went a little bit longer, but I want to thank you guys for showing up. I thank you guys for the super chats. I thank you guys for the love and affection and adoration and curses and everything else. I appreciate all you guys. I have been definitely a little bit absent from social media, and I may keep doing that for a little bit. It's painful, and why do things that are painful? But if they're painful, I have to ask why. That leads me to this video. That leads me to this entire conversation. So let's see what happens this week. I don't know if I'll be streaming on Thursday again because I'm probably going to be taking some shifts at work at my family nursery because it's the busy season and they really need help. They're short on people. As you guys know, with everything going on, a lot of people aren't working, so they're down people and they kind of need help. And they've been asking me, they wanted me in today, they wanted me in 7 days a week. And I'm like, I just can't. I can do 3 or 4. So I'm probably going to end up doing it towards the end of the week. So I'll probably do like this again. Maybe another day in the upcoming week, I'll do another live stream or something like that. All that stuff. But if you want to support me, I know everyone's suffering right now. I know money's tight for everybody. I'm not expecting much, but if you want to help me out, I've got books and I've got an Etsy store and I've got a Teespring store. I've got a bunch of stuff in the Linktree link in the description. That's a great way you can help me out. It keeps me doing this. It makes it worth my while to do it, even when I don't feel like it. So it keeps me going. Nameless says, I'm following your Etsy shops. I'll get something from you eventually when I'm not broke. Hey, no problem. We're getting more stuff coming out soon. My wife just bought a bunch of material to make some new mirrors, and she's going to be putting out some very mini mirrors that are like around 15, 20 bucks, but they're only going to be like this big. So they're more like compact mirrors, and it might be harder for some of you to use, but I think some people would like that. It might be more portable, or it might be just cheaper, and it'd be like scrying into your cell phone. Like some people, if you know, you can do that, by the way. You can use your cell phone for that. But it'd be a little smaller mirror, and so she's getting those going. But she's also working that 7-day schedule that I said I don't want to do. She's doing that because that's like, it's her family, so she's going to definitely do more work. So she's not going to have as much time to make these products, especially once April and May hit. She's going to be kind of off from everything until about June. So she's trying to make a couple over the next week to put up for early April to get a little bit of money going. Our goal is within the next year or two to buy, some kind of a cabin, like right on the edge of the grid, someplace where we can use Starlink for internet and not worry about stuff. And we can use it like a summer home or a vacation home or something. Until we decide to move in full time and get jobs there. So we're not even looking for something expensive. 50,000, 80,000. Heck, I'd buy a yurt at this point just to be able to get away from everything for a little while. So, we'll see how that all goes. But, we're not rich people. I never claim that I use magic for becoming rich. Magic for me is a way to induce higher sensitivity synchronicity. That's a great way to put it. So anyway, guys, I will see you sometime this week. I'm seeing everybody chatting and saying thank you. Thank you, guys. I will see you sometime this week. Until then, mind the shadows and all that good shit. And so let me hit the button here.